Welcome to a new season in our lives. We are on a mission to demolish the arguments that have kept us from taking our next step towards true Christian authenticity. Are you ready to tear down those self-protective masks that are holding you back in life, in business, in relationships? It's about mindset, but more specifically, learning to keep our minds set on Christ regardless of circumstance. This is the Mindset School podcast. I'm your host, Peggy Easterling. Let's be real, okay? Are you ready? Let's go. If you are a Christian entrepreneur, listen up, because I'm talking to you today and have some tools to get you unstuck from that life that you've settled for. We are diving into a topic that has everything to do with your success, not just in your personal life, but especially in your business. You know that nagging, judgmental voice that's in your mind? That is your inner critic. It shows up like a 1-star reviewer, full of opinions, but without any understanding of what's really happening. And if we let it, this voice can hold us back from achieving success God has for us in our work, in our relationships, in our purpose. Today, we are breaking down how the inner critic operates and why it's so dangerous to let it steer your business. And most importantly, how to silence it so you can start moving forward with confidence. Whether you're leading a team, launching a product, or simply trying to take your work to the next level in your Christian business, this inner critic, it doesn't get to have the final say unless you let it. So let's start with the story. And this one's a little personal. Sometimes these personal experiences are what shape us the most, right? So before I ever launched the Mindset School, before I ever called myself a coach, I was stepping into this idea of helping others with their mindsets. And I had a vision of how this could help people fully and for them to live fully and thrive in their work. But I hadn't even started. I haven't even begun the process when someone close to me, when I shared about my vision, didn't just dismiss it, completely went in the opposite direction. And what's hard is, was one of the people that I thought would be on my side and be an advocate and help me on my journey towards entrepreneurial success. And they said to me, "Who are you to think that you can do this?" So this was like them giving me a 1-star review without even giving me a chance to see potential in me. And here's where this ties in to business. Those words, they started echoing in my mind, and they began to keep me from fully stepping forward. I started to doubt myself, and I started to question why I even started this in the first place. And I began hesitating when I should have been taking risks that moved me forward. So imagine this playing out in your own work. Maybe you're on the verge of launching a new idea, or maybe you're taking a new leadership role, or you're like me and you're starting your own business. And that inner critic is whispering, "You're not cut out for this. You're going to fail." It's like trying to drive a car with one foot on the brake. Here's what I realized, though. That person that didn't deserve to have that much power over my purpose, over my calling, over my God call for my life, they hadn't seen the whole story. They didn't have that vision. They didn't understand the call that God had placed on my heart. If you're letting someone else's 1-star opinion or even your own inner critic control your next move, You're letting that voice keep you from the impact you could be making. There is more for you. This inner critic isn't just a minor annoyance. It can be annoying, yes. But this inner critic sometimes has real, tangible impacts on our business success. If you are constantly doubting yourself, it's easy to fall into small thinking. And maybe you're only setting those safe, attainable goals and refusing to step outside of your comfort zone. And maybe you're avoiding risk and staying silent in meetings because you're convinced that your ideas aren't good enough. And here's the problem. When the critic is in control, it stifles innovation. It's going to kill your creativity and stop you from showing up as the leader that God designed you to be. It's like what happened when the Israelites were in this wilderness. They had God's promises of a land flowing with milk and honey. But because they listened to the voices of doubt, they wandered in circles for 40 stinking years. They were equipped to enter that promised land, but their inner critic, or rather their own fear, kept them from moving forward. In the business world, this plays out in so many ways. We hesitate to pitch ideas, fearing rejection. We limit our goals because we are afraid we won't meet them. We undervalue our work, undersell our services, say yes to things that drain us. When we listen to this critic, we're not just missing opportunities. We're shrinking the impact our work could have on the lives of others through service. Here's the kicker. When we let this inner critic drive our decisions, we're letting fear, not faith, shape our careers, our businesses, our lives, our relationships, our marriages, our identity as parents. Yikes. So, how do we start silencing this inner critic? How do we shut it down? That voice that holds us back from achieving our God-given potential in business. The first thing is to talk back with facts and achievements. In business, just like life, this inner critic loves to distort reality. It'll tell you you're not cut out for this or you'll never make it. One powerful way to combat this is keeping your wins list. Record the wins, the gratitude, the things that you've got to be thankful for that God has really brought you through in your life. Those accomplishments that you've put in the work and you've done things. You've checked off those KPIs. Anytime you receive positive feedback or meet a goal or make progress, write it down. And when the inner critic tells you you're not good enough, pull out that list. Remind yourself of those times that you've stepped up, that you've had courage, that you've worked through challenging problems, that you trusted God when there was a way, when there seemed there was no way. David reminded himself of the lions and the bears he had defeated before facing Goliath. You can remind yourself of what you've already overcome. The critic hates this evidence because it thrives on distortion, not reality. By bringing facts to the table and real achievements, you show it who's in charge. So make sure to talk back to that stinking thinking inner critic voice and to talk back with facts. Here's number 2. Self-compassion, not harshness, is key to growth. Here's the deal. In the business world, we often think that being hard on ourselves drives us to success. But studies actually show that self-compassion is more effective than self-criticism when it comes to achieving goals. Think about this. When we mess up, the critic, that inner critic, is going to say, see, you're a failure. But when we respond with self-compassion, with grace, with loving our neighbor as ourself, And we say, I'm learning and I'll improve next time. We build resilience. And this is where I think about Jesus's conversation with Peter. Peter had denied Jesus 3 times, and then he ran away in shame. But when Jesus met him on the shore, he did not condemn him. He restored him. He gave him purpose. He called him forward. If we respond to our mistakes with that same compassion, we can learn from them without letting them keep us stuck. Number 3, all right, if we are looking to overcome that inner critic, we want to take small, bold action to defy the critic. So this inner critic tends to get loudest when we're on the brink of something new, an opportunity, a big decision, a risk. This is where the power of small steps comes in. Every time we move forward, even in the smallest way, we're proving to that inner critic that it does not control us. Want to try something new at work? Start by researching it. Thinking about pitching a big idea? Draft an outline. Want to set a stretch goal for your business? Take that first step to make it happen. Think about the book of Joshua, when the priests were instructed to take that first step into the water. These waters didn't part until they took that first step. That shows faith. The same thing goes for us. When we take even a small action, we're showing that inner critic we're not afraid to move forward. We're going to take a step of faith. So we've talked back with facts. We've shown ourselves compassion, and we've taken small, bold actions to defy the critic. So number 4, transform your criticism into curiosity. This is one of my favorites. Turning that criticism into curiosity when that critic says, "You're not ready for this." And then respond with a question. Get curious about what it's saying. What would it take for me to feel prepared? This simple shift in our mindset and how we show up, it turns this critic's negative into a learning opportunity. It gives you a bridge to get where you need to go. Use this critic's tactics against him. In the workplace, this might look like asking, how can I develop my skills? Or what steps would make me feel more confident? When we ask these questions, we're opening the door to growth. Instead of letting this critic keep us stuck in fear and inaction. So, transform that criticism into curiosity. So I want to bring you closer to the work we're doing here now. Recently, I was coaching a client who had been facing her own inner critic about a big decision in her business. She was on the fence. She was wrestling with fears about failing and doubts about her capabilities. And when we sat down and talked, I could sense the tension. And I knew that showing up fully with openness and without judgment was key to helping her break through. Instead of diving straight into business strategies, we spent a moment connecting on these underlying fears that are holding her back. I shared my own story of my 1-star review and how I had to confront that critic to show up fully in my calling. And as I spoke, I could see her opening up. I feeling seen, feeling safe, feeling like there was space to explore her own doubts without any judgment. Sometimes the boldest way to lead is to just show up as yourself, to let the client see your own journey. This breaks down walls and allows trust to build. Even the biggest and the so-called best entrepreneur out there, they deal with this. And whenever they show up real as their true selves, authentically, they'll admit that. So in this session with this client, it wasn't just a feel-good moment. It laid the foundation for real progress. As we worked together, she started replacing those doubts with some confidence and some action steps. So you left that session not only feeling seen and understood, but with a strategy to move forward. And this is why we cannot let the inner critic rule our business lives. Because when we silence it in our lives, we create space for others to do the same. Romans 12:2 says it this way: do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. In business, this means not conforming to the patterns of self-doubt, fear, limiting beliefs. We have a choice. We can let this inner critic dictate our decisions, or we can fill our minds with God's truth. Remember Gideon in the Bible? When God called him to lead, he didn't think he was good enough. His inner critic was so loud. I'm least in my family. I'm not good enough. But God saw a mighty warrior in Gideon, and he called him as such. Even when Gideon couldn't see it himself, God spoke directly to Gideon's potential, not in his current state with all his doubts. But when Gideon finally aligned his own self-perception with God's vision, he was able to step forward with courage, leading people to victory. In our businesses, we face similar crossroads. When we let our inner critic define us, we see our limitations only. But when we allow God's voice to shape our identity, we unlock our capacity to lead, to create, and to make an impact. The world tells us to measure success by what we achieve, but God calls us to align with his purpose for our lives. Success in his eyes, stepping boldly in faith into that purpose, even when it's scary, even when our inner critic tries to pull us back. So here's what I want you to take away from today. The inner critic, it's just one voice, but it doesn't have to be the voice. And the more you recognize it for what it is, the easier it becomes to replace it with God's truth in your business. This can mean the difference between staying safe and small, or stepping into the work that God has called you to do in a big way. If you've been letting that inner critic hold you back, today's the day to make the shift. Here's a practical step to close this out. Write down one truth about who you are in Christ and who you're becoming. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just one sentence that reminds you of your worth, your calling, and your God-given potential. Place it somewhere you'll see every day. Let that be the voice that speaks louder than that critic inside. Thank you guys for tuning in. If this message resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it too. And remember, in the workplace, at home, and in life, God has already equipped you. Let's move forward boldly together and tune out that inner critic and tune in to his truth. Remember, you have the power to silence the one-star reviewer and listen to the truth God's spoken over you. Every time that critic rears its head, remind yourself of what's real. You're capable, you're called, and fully equipped for the journey ahead. Until next time, keep taking those bold steps forward, knowing you are loved, you're chosen, and you're ready for what's in store next. Thank you for listening. I'll be right here cheering you on until our next episode. See you then. Thank you for joining me today on our journey towards Christian authenticity and a Christ-centered mindset. Remember, the masks that we wear not only hide our true selves, but also keep us held back, living small in life, in business, and in relationships. As we wrap up, I invite you to take a crucial step towards your breakthrough. I created the Breakthrough Quiz just for you. Head over to themindsetSchool.net/quiz and dive in to discover a guide to move you closer to your authentic self and renewing your mind God's way. Until next time, let's be real, okay?